Live from the rooftop of the Hermann London Real Estate Group in beautiful downtown Maplewood, it's the St. Louis Realtor Podcast with your host, Adam Kruse.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to podcast number 9 here from the Hermann London Real Estate Group in beautiful downtown Maplewood, Missouri. And tonight, it's also the Hermann London Property Management Group because we have a very special guest with us, Tom Potter, who we'll introduce here in just a second. But first off, we just want to tell you guys thanks for listening. Don't forget to check out our website, hermannlondon.com, and then click on the blog, and that's where you can see the latest podcast. That's where we've got all the best information. And you can also submit your questions, submit likes, submit any feedback that you have, because we're always trying to get better, and we really want to know what kind of topics that you want to hear from us. So, please interact with us. And you've heard me in the past, I've mentioned that we have a pool table tournament going on. I always wish I would have called it a billiards tournament, but I mentioned Tom Potter. Well, we have a guy in our office who is not only a billiards expert, he's more than that, and he's also a property management expert, and more than anything, he's a fishing expert. I think he'd have to agree. And I'm going to introduce him now because he's sitting here with sitting here with me in our studios. And Tom Potter, welcome to the show here today.
Thanks, Adam. Always a pleasure.
Thanks. And thanks for coming. So I'm just going to jump right into it. How do you know me?
We met way back in high school days.
Okay.
You went to a bad school. I went to a good one.
Sure. And we had some good times together. And then what happened after that? You went into hotel management, right?
I did. About 7 years. Kind of got burned out and was asking you for a referral on a different type of career, I guess. And we kind of talked and decided to kind of build it here at your company.
And I was able to explain to you the benefits of getting into this world called property management, which I didn't really know a whole lot about at the time, right?
Right.
Okay. And so what for you was different about property management than hotel management? Is it just totally different? You can't even compare it, or are there some aspects similar?
Well, the primary difference is the time frame that you're renting something.
Oh, yeah. One night versus 1 year.
Right. And I guess your location as well is in one building versus across the whole St. Louis County. So
I guess I'm gonna try to ask you some questions, and I want you to answer them as if I don't know anything about property management. We want the people who are listening who, I don't know exactly who our audience is. It could be some realtors, it could be some investors, it could be, mainly my mom and Aunt Marysy probably that are listening. But tell me, what is property management? What does that even mean?
I think property management's primarily someone to act on the behalf of the owner of a property, and in times act as like a middleman to deal with all aspects of leasing a home.
So someone owns a property and they kind of just don't want to deal with it anymore?
Lots of reasons. Maybe they don't want to deal with it. Maybe they moved out of state and don't think it can be properly handled without being in town, which is generally true.
Okay.
Could be a myriad of reasons.
Maybe it's part of their investment strategy.
Sure.
Are most of your clients investors, or most of them, the homeowners that just don't want to deal with it, or what are they?
Most people that we help with rental properties are people that just can't sell right now.
Uh-huh.
And they're looking for kind of a short to a moderately long-term solution to generate some income, help pay bills and things like that.
Okay.
Until the market improves enough where they can try to sell again.
Okay. I remember when we first kind of got into this game, it was, the market wasn't as good as it is now. And I guess it's not necessarily a perfect market by any means for buyers or sellers, but in that time it was really pretty much bad for sellers, right?
Right.
And so we were meeting a lot of people who had bought a home. They call us because they want to sell it because they need to move, and we would go to them and say, hey, this is how much we can sell your house for. I'll just use $150,000 as an example. And they would say, great. Well, we owe $200,000. And so what should we do? And before we had you in our office, I'd have to say, well, call me when you want to lose $50,000, or let's talk about doing a short sale, right?
Right.
And that, we did a lot of that. I mean, we did a lot of short sales and foreclosures and that type of thing, or pre-foreclosures, I guess, before we got involved with property management. And then how did that conversation go after we would say, so we'd say, oh, well, we can sell it for $150, and they said we owe $200 before we would leave. But kind of tell me how you think the conversation goes now.
Well, now we're doing kind of a similar comparable search to determine a rental price.
Uh-huh.
And if those numbers are in line with covering their expenses, then they, consider the lease as an option, for them to kind of wait out the market.
Uh-huh. So, right. So we would say, we can sell it for $150. They'd say we owe $200, and we'd say, have you considered renting? Because we think we can get, say, $1,400 a month for your house. How much is your monthly payment? And they might say $1,100. We'd say, how would you like to make, $300 a month? And then what a lot of homeowners say is, oh, what if the toilet breaks at 2 a.m. and it leaks and they call me, right?
Right.
And that's when, enter Tom. Tom will manage it for you, and you'll deal with those problems for the people.
Correct.
So when you first got into the business, what was different? I think you started by managing a 4-family property, right?
Yeah, the first one was a 4-family.
4-family, and now you don't manage that many 4-families, right?
Nope, 0.
0, that's right. I own a 4-family building, but someone else at our company manages it, right? And what have you found that you just prefer the single-family properties? Or is it just like your niche of the types of properties, the kind of the incomes that the rents that you manage just don't happen to be in that many 4-families?
I think that's more the case. Also, 4-family or any multifamily unit is, 4 toilets, 4 HVACs. There's more things to break. To me, it's easier to just do a single family or a single condo or loft or something like that.
Okay, so property management to you is basically managing, sort of taking care of someone else's property for them so they can kind of sleep easy at night.
Sure.
Right?
Absolutely.
And, I guess, was I your first client actually, or was it the 4-family?
4-family.
And then shortly after that, you started managing a couple of my properties for me.
Yep.
And it was interesting for me because I used to, drive past one of my homes that's a rental home, and I would have to worry about the home, right? And I would have to think, oh, I hope they pay. Oh, I need to get them to mow their lawn. Oh, what's that trash can doing in the street still today or whatever? And now something about hiring you as my property manager, even though I live closer to the homes than you do actually, something about it is just this, it's just kind of this weight off of my shoulders, And I think that's because you provide a full service solution. What would you say is different than from you or from us, I guess you could say, our Hermann London Property Management, and what you might have heard about other property management companies?
Everything I've heard about property management companies in general has been relatively negative, that they don't follow up with people or they don't communicate well. That and times maybe are not doing their job that they've agreed to do. So a big part, I think, of our success is following through with commitments and communicating to both the tenant and the owner about ongoing issues. And, I think that's why I've been more successful.
So a big key to your success is simply communicating.
Sure.
I guess you said that people aren't necessarily following up. We've heard horror stories, right, of property management companies who just keep rent, or how they overcharge for vendors or that kind of thing. Obviously, you're not doing those things, but that's not even the bar, right? The bar should just be set at, hey, we're going to do the right thing. But then what's made you excel is over communicating.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Your agreement outlines what you're going to do, and then on top, anything you do above that, I think, sets you above the rest as well.
Okay, so when you tell me about this, someone calls you, right? And what kind of questions are they usually asking you? They're going, hey, I need a property manager. Have they usually researched it online, and they kind of know a little bit and they have questions? Or do people call you and they just say, I don't even know exactly what I'm asking, but I think I need this. What is it?
Most people don't know what to ask the first time. They ask how much it costs, what you provide as a service, and what do you do if the tenant stops paying. Those are the primary questions I get on a first inquiry.
Okay, and is that usually verbal or is that usually via email?
It's 50-50.
And I'm trying to make this show be a show that is like actually gives the listener technical information, technical knowledge,
Okay.
So I want to ask you in general, and I assume and understand that there's variables, but in general, what does property management cost?
Typically, if we're finding the tenant for the homeowner, we charge the first month's rent as a leasing fee.
Okay.
And then starting the second month of the lease term through the rest of the lease term, we charge anywhere between 8 and 10% of the monthly rent.
Of the monthly rent. Okay. So if I have a tenant in place already, can I still call you?
Absolutely.
If I just have a vacant home, you'll help me find a tenant.
And you want to try to do it, manage it yourself? Sure, we can do that too.
Okay, so if I have a vacant home and I want to find a tenant, I can call you. You'll find me a tenant, and just be done. Or you can find the tenant for me and then manage the property.
Correct.
So it's the first. It's generally somewhere around the first month's rent, and somewhere around 8 to 10% of the monthly rent.
Correct.
So then, what happens? The tenant. Who's the tenant paying?
The tenant will always pay us if we're managing the property, in which case we'll retain the first month's rent, and then each month going forward, we'll just keep our 8 to 10% and send you the difference.
Okay, so you'll just deposit the money in my account, right?
Correct.
I know I'm sort of answering questions that I know asking questions I know the answer to, but I think this is important kind of stuff that people ask.
Mm-hmm.
And we just electronically deposit into their account.
Correct.
Okay, so, well, how often do you deal with people that don't pay their rent?
Not very often because of how thorough our background checks are. We're looking at their credit, not just their credit score, but their credit history, where we can see number of late pays, 30, 60, 90 days.
Okay.
Any bankruptcies or foreclosures that they've had, outstanding debt that they owe, up to the monthly, amount that they owe. We're talking to previous landlords, asking them if they would re-rent to them, if they owe you any money, do they damage your property.
And you call their jobs too, right?
Right, and verify their employment and income, typically looking for about 3 times the monthly rent as far as income. And then obviously a criminal check. And with all those pieces, which also entails any rental court cases, with all those pieces, we have a pretty good idea of whether this person's going to be a reliable payer.
So through your leasing process of finding the tenant, you do a thorough screening, and you're saying that kind of work up front is what leads to not having as many evictions.
Absolutely.
And are you but that just seems kind of obvious. Is that not
it is
normal?
Called do it right the first time.
Do it right the first time. Well, I guess, are there a lot of there's probably a lot of people out there who have the personality type, maybe more like mine, that would meet a potential tenant and just go, this person just seems so nice, right? Or they just seem so trustworthy, or they showed up in a BMW, so they must have money, right?
Yeah, I get calls from those people often a few months after they let the person move in, asking me to fix it.
Fix it. And is that okay? Can they keep calling you?
Sure.
That's how you get new clients sometimes, right?
Sure.
And so then you're saying, okay, so because you do kind of a thorough job up front, what else do you do that's thorough? You have pretty, kind of thorough paperwork, right? Not that you need to go through all the paperwork, but is there anything you do that you might think is different than what a normal, landlord might do that bought their paperwork at Office Max or something?
Sure. Well, the lease that we use is created by St. Louis Association of Realtors. It's very thorough, protects the landlord, clearly defines the responsibilities of the tenant. And then we also have our own forms and documents that we require the tenant to sign that kind of reemphasizes the main points that have often become problems, so that they know up front, we're highlighting these elements, essentially saying, do not do these, and there's some fines associated with them that we have them sign.
Okay.
And then additionally, we complete quarterly inspections throughout the year to make sure that nothing's being going back on what they've agreed to do in the lease, basically.
Okay, so the quarterly inspections are something that you do to kind of just make sure you don't have any big surprises at the very end.
Exactly.
And you don't show up to the house and the tenant's moved out and there's holes in the wall and just huge problems, right? Or mold all over the building or something like that. But I guess I want to kind of get back to the tenant screening part and the paperwork and all that type of thing. What we've found on the residential sales side when we're helping people write an offer on a home, the sale contract is 8 pages. And I remember someone brought one in a couple years ago from when their parents had bought a home in 1970, right? And it was 1 page. And so over the years, problems have happened, lawsuits have happened, type of thing. And the realtor sale contract has grown and grown and grown, and now it's 8 pages. And I suppose that's kind of what's happened with our paperwork, minus all the lawsuits. But just for every time you've come across a problem, you've tried to find a way. What's your favorite saying? You learned it from your old job.
Oh, well, we like to be proactive and fix a problem forever.
Fix it forever. That's right. That's something I learned from Tom Potter. You want to solve it. You have a problem, you want to fix it forever. And that's a cool thing that you do. And I think that's something that basically that's a reason why a potential landlord client of yours, that's one more value they can get out of you, right? You have the experience to know the problems that might come and ultimately save them money.
Sure.
But what if they don't pay?
Well, we have attorneys that we can refer, and they're for a reasonable cost. They can get the process going so that if the person continues to default after you have made an attempt to collect again, then they'll essentially be in queue to be evicted through the court of law if it's just due to non-payment of rent. Okay,
so you don't send a big scary guy over there and banging on the door demanding the money?
No.
Okay. You don't go over there. I mean, we've heard stories like this, right?
Sure.
You don't go over there and remove all their windows in the middle of the winter and say, oh, we're going to have the new windows in a week.
That's illegal.
That's illegal? Okay. I heard a story recently of a guy who would pull up to the house and unload a bunch of, plywood. And he would just leave the plywood in the front yard as if like, hey, we're going to board up the doors here in just a day or two if you don't pay your rent, and that makes people pay. You don't do something like that?
No, that's creative, but I think probably also illegal.
It's kind of like bullying or something like that, right?
Yeah, it's...
and you just don't find that it's necessary. You haven't found that is necessary because
right. Well, number
you do
one,
so much screening up front.
Right. Number one, we rarely have to deal with it. Number two, the clients that we do have that maybe have trouble paying usually communicate with us. But number three, typically when they get a letter from an attorney, it tends to change their mind.
Maybe a letter from the attorney can be scarier than a couple pieces of plywood laying in their front yard, huh?
I think so.
Okay. All right. And so then what was the other question that you asked? What are your services? Or you said that a lot of sellers ask or homeowners ask you?
Right. Yeah. What comes with that? So
what is that? How do you generally answer that?
Well, essentially we're here for peace of mind when something does go wrong.
Okay.
So aside from the quarterly inspections that we do each like every 3 months, and collection of rent and keeping track of all the accounting documents that you need for filing taxes, and outside of that, being the person that can deal with those calls at late night, we're essentially the middleman to make sure that the owner is represented well when something goes wrong.
Okay. And now you manage a lot of properties right now, right?
Yeah, about 65.
And should I be concerned that you're managing too many properties that you won't be able to give enough attention to mine?
No, we have the software that we use does a lot of the legwork for us to keep track of when things are coming due, and deals with a lot of the accounting aspects and making sure that payments get done. And I'm available to handle most questions within a couple hours of getting called.
Okay, so even though you have a ton of properties, it sounds like you have good systems in place to help you kind of keep it all in order, right?
Exactly.
And the property owners can log into our software and get reports about their property at any time.
Sure.
And we have a office manager, Jerry. Hey, Jerry, who kind of keeps everything input into the software, that type of thing, so they can get updates.
Right.
Okay.
It's really just a lot of data entry that then kind of works for itself, works for us.
Are you looking to grow?
Absolutely.
What does that mean? You want more properties? Does that mean you want more property managers? Does that mean you want to expand into other areas, or what does that mean?
More managers and more properties is a good start.
What do you think the good the good personality type of someone who wants to be a property manager is?
Communicate well. Obviously, we already covered. Detail oriented is good. Follows through on commitments.
One of the things I always talk about you is that you have consistency, right? And so, is that just something that's your personality, or does that play into your success as a property manager?
No, I think consistency is very important. It's basically from the leasing process to the tenant actually moving out and a new one moving in. That cycle is exactly the same every time usually. And if we do it the same way every time, then we get the same results every time.
And one of the great things about Tom is, so for my personality, I'm always, it's like, oh, squirrel, right? And I'm always kind of like looking for the next thing or whatever, which works well. We're a good team for that reason, because I'm kind of always looking to improve things, right? But you bring the consistency to make sure what we have going just keeps going. And have you seen property managers that maybe we don't need to go there. I guess I want to hear from you some sort of like interesting or funny story. In my experience, the move-ins can be stressful, but the move-outs can be real stressful, right? Because you've got grandma there sweaty because she's been working all day on cleaning the place, and it's just not quite clean enough or whatever. Do you have any interesting stories you can tell about, the trials and tribulations of Tom Potter over the last few years?
With inspections, not so much.
Has it been pretty awkward sometimes, though?
Yeah, sometimes it's difficult, but that's exactly why we write things down on paper and take pictures. Is you sign this document, and I have a picture of this broken now that wasn't broken before.
Right.
Then.
We have a picture of the wall that was a regular wall, and now there's a hole in it. So, but people don't want to own up to it and that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. One guy comes to mind. He was unwilling to hand over the keys and the garage door opener and things.
On his move out?
Yeah. Well, he didn't quite show up either until the very end. And then was refusing to. He had brought several things from Lowe's that, he was saying, here, you can fix this now or whatever, and expected, to still get his full deposit back because he supplied the materials.
But he just wanted you to kind of fix the problems with the materials he provided?
Yeah, I guess so. And that's not the way it works, unfortunately. So
okay,
we had to pay someone, to the labor to basically do the work, some of which was much more intensive than I guess he envisioned. And so, we ended up having to keep a good amount of his deposit despite him providing the materials, which was a fraction of the cost, really.
I'm sitting here thinking, man, I wish we had some like really fun and interesting and, wild stories to tell. But I guess that's part of the reason to hire the property manager. That's part of the reason to hire Tom, is that the owner doesn't want fun and interesting and wild stories, right?
Right.
Because the whole idea is to just kind of stabilize the property.
Right.
Right. They're traveling or they're investing or they're dealing with their lives, and they don't want wild and
you don't want wild cards.
Happen, right?
You don't want wild card as a tenant.
Okay. I mean, have you had anybody try to keep like a really crazy pet or anything? Not really. Nope.
No.
Only the pets that we've approved up front.
Right.
Okay. So Tom, tell me how I can get a hold of you if I have a property that I need to manage.
You can fill out a request on our website, or you can email me at tom@hermanlondon.com or give me a call at 314-920-0781.
314-920-0781 for all your property management needs. Your email is tom@hermanlondon.com.
You got it.
HERMANNLONDON.com. All right. Well, thanks for coming on today's show. We're looking forward to big things from you, Mr. Potter. And if you get any good and interesting stories, let me know, because we'll have you come back and tell us about the wild times at Hermann London Property Management.
Maybe the next tenant that you get, we'll be a little lax on screening and see if we can get something for you.
Get some good stories?
Yeah.
Well, please don't.
Very good.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening to today's podcast here. This is podcast number 9, and we've got a lot more good stuff coming for you. I'm going to be going out of town in the next week, but when I return, February 10th, we're going to have another show that week for you, and we're going to be getting ready for Valentine's Day, so make sure you buy a piece of real estate or hire Tom to do some property management for your Valentine. I'm sure they would really appreciate it. And thanks for listening to today's show. Check out the website, hermanlondon.com. And as always, thank you to our wild producer, Joey Vosevich, for being in the studios today. Take care.